The first time Nicholas Yates drove his truck down the winding mountain road toward the small town of Pine Ridge, he felt his shoulders relax for the first time in months. The tension that had been his constant companion in Boston's corporate high-rise gradually loosened its grip as the sprawling pines and crisp mountain air replaced the suffocating concrete jungle he'd left behind. At 35, Nicholas had achieved everything society deemed success: CEO of Yates Tech Solutions, a Fortune 500 company he'd built from the ground up, a penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor, and more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. But success had come at a price. Sleepless nights, constant pressure, and the nagging emptiness that no business deal could fill had finally pushed him to his breaking point. 3 months, he'd told his board of directors. I need 3 months away or I'm walking permanently. The ultimatum had shocked them. Nicholas Yates didn't take vacations, let alone sabbaticals. But they'd agreed, appointing his COO as interim leader while he found himself or whatever executives did during midlife crises. Now, as he navigated his custom black Ford F-150 through the winding roads of the Appalachian foothills, Nicholas felt like he could breathe again. He'd rented a secluded cabin sight unseen, wanting complete isolation from the world he'd left behind. Recalculating, his GPS announced as it lost signal again. Nicholas sighed, tapping the screen before noticing a plume of steam rising from under his hood. Perfect, he muttered, pulling over to the shoulder. The truck shuddered before dying completely. Nicholas climbed out, lifting the hood only to be greeted by a cloud of hot steam. Cars were not his area of expertise. He paid people to handle such inconveniences in Boston. After 15 frustrating minutes of staring at the engine and confirming his phone had no service, Nicholas spotted an approaching vehicle. A faded blue tow truck with Brennan's Auto painted on the side slowed to a stop behind his F-150. Need some help, called a woman's voice. Nicholas turned, preparing his most charming corporate smile, but it faltered as the driver approached. She was about his age, with copper hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing worn jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned, strong arms. Smudges of grease marked her hands, which she wiped on a rag tucked into her back pocket. Seems that way, he admitted, gesturing to the steaming engine. I'm not exactly sure what's wrong. Mind if I take a look? She didn't wait for his response, stepping forward and leaning under the hood with practiced ease. I'm Tess, by the way, Tess Brennan. Nicholas Yates, he replied, watching as she examined various components with sure hands. Well, Nicholas, your radiator hose is shot. You're lucky you pulled over when you did. Another mile and you'd have blown your engine entirely. She straightened up, wiping her hands again. I can tow you to my shop in town. Should be a quick fix. You have a shop? Nicholas asked before he could stop himself. Tess raised an eyebrow. Brennan's Auto, she said, pointing to her truck. It's been my place for about 8 years now. Before you ask, yes, I'm the mechanic. Nicholas felt his face warm. I didn't mean to imply, sure you did, she interrupted, but her tone was light. City boy like you, expensive truck like this, you're not used to women fixing your vehicles. I'm not used to anyone fixing my vehicles, he admitted. In Boston, I have a service that handles all that. Well, welcome to Pine Ridge, where we fix our own problems. Tess gestured toward her tow truck. Hop in. I'll have you back on the road by tomorrow. Nicholas hesitated only briefly before grabbing his duffel bag from the passenger seat. As he climbed into Tess's truck, he noticed the well-worn but immaculately clean interior, a small photo of a younger Tess with an older man tucked into the visor. Your father? He asked, nodding toward the photo. Tess glanced up and smiled softly. Yeah. Dad taught me everything I know about cars. He started Brennan's back in the 80s. She navigated the truck onto the road with practiced ease. He passed 4 years ago, heart attack while working under a '67 Mustang. At least he went doing what he loved. I'm sorry, Nicholas said, genuinely meaning it. Thanks. Tess was quiet for a moment. So what brings a Boston CEO to our little corner of nowhere? You are a CEO, right? I recognized your name. Tech company? Nicholas blinked in surprise. You've heard of me. We may be rural, but we're not completely disconnected, she laughed. Plus, I read business journals when I'm waiting for parts deliveries. Your face was on the cover of Fortune last year. Nicholas shifted uncomfortably. I needed a break, 3 months away from everything. Burnout. Tess asked simply, something like that. Well, you came to the right place. Not much happens in Pine Ridge. Tess turned off the main road onto a smaller one that led into a quaint town center. Though fair warning, once people figure out who you are, you'll be the most interesting thing to happen here since Mrs. Peterson's goat ate the mayor's toupee during the Founders' Day parade. Despite himself, Nicholas laughed. It felt strange, unfamiliar. When was the last time he genuinely laughed? Brennan's auto was a tidy operation on the edge of town, a large garage with 2 bays, a small office, and a fenced yard with a few cars in various states of repair. Tess expertly backed his truck into one of the bays before jumping down. I'll start working on it now, but parts won't arrive until tomorrow morning, she explained. There's a bed and breakfast 2 blocks down if you need a place to stay. My cabin rental is supposed to be about 10 miles from here, Nicholas said. Is there a taxi service or something? Tess's laugh was warm and genuine. City boy indeed, no taxis here. I can drive you when I close up, but that won't be for a few hours. Nicholas checked his watch, a habit he was trying to break, and realized he had nowhere to be and nothing pressing to do. It was a novel feeling. Mind if I hang around? I could use a coffee, but I'd like to see what you do, he said, surprising himself with the request. Tess looked equally surprised. Sure, coffee pot's in the office. It's strong enough to strip paint, but it'll keep you awake. For the next 3 hours, Nicholas sat on a stool in the garage watching Tess work. She moved with confidence and precision, explaining what she was doing when he asked questions. There was something captivating about her expertise, the way she handled tools with the same assurance he navigated boardrooms. You know, most people find watching someone fix a car boring, Tess commented as she finished examining his radiator. I find it fascinating, Nicholas replied honestly. You clearly know exactly what you're doing. It's impressive. Well, thank you. Tess wiped her hands and leaned against the workbench. So 3 months in Pine Ridge. What are you planning to do with yourself? We're not exactly known for our nightlife. Honestly, I have no idea. Sleep, hike, maybe read something that isn't a quarterly report or a contract. Nicholas ran a hand through his dark hair. I've been going full throttle for so long, I've forgotten how to idle. That sounds like a good place to start, Tess nodded. Though fair warning, if you don't give yourself some structure, you'll go stir crazy within a week. Voice of experience. After Dad died, I took a month off. By day 10, I was organizing my sock drawer by color and thread count. She smiled, but Nicholas could see the lingering sadness in her eyes. Grief and idle hands don't mix well. Before Nicholas could respond, the garage door opened, and an elderly man walked in, leaning on a cane. Evening, Tess. Just checking if my truck's ready for tomorrow's fishing trip, the man said, nodding politely at Nicholas. All set, Mr. Jenkins. Oil changed, brakes checked, and I topped off your fluids, Tess replied, her entire demeanor shifting to warm professionalism. Keys are in the office. After the man left, Tess glanced at the clock. I should close up soon. Let me wash up and I'll drive you to your cabin. 20 minutes later, they were back in Tess's truck, driving up a winding mountain road. So is it just you at the shop? Nicholas asked. Most days. I have a part-time helper, Joey, a high school kid who's good with engines. He works afternoons during school and full days in summer. Tess navigated a sharp turn with ease. I could use another full-time mechanic, but good help is hard to find and the budget's tight. Business struggles? Tess shrugged. We do okay, town's small, but people need their vehicles. Dad left some debt when he died, medical bills, plus he'd taken out a loan to expand the garage right before his heart attack. I'm making the payments, but it doesn't leave much for hiring. Nicholas nodded, mentally calculating what a business like hers might need for sustainable growth. It was the CEO in him, he couldn't help it. This is it, Tess said, turning onto a narrow drive that led to a rustic but well-maintained cabin. The Wilson place. They rent it out when they're in Florida for the winter. Nicholas took in the wooden structure nestled among tall pines. A large deck wrapped around the front, offering what he imagined would be stunning mountain views in the daylight. "It's perfect," he said softly. "Keys should be under the flower pot on the porch," Tess told him. "Town's straight down this road, about 15 minutes. General store has everything you'll need. Oh, and there's no cell service up here, but the cabin has a landline for emergencies." "No cell service sounds like exactly what I need," Nicholas admitted, grabbing his duffel from the back seat. "Thank you for everything, Tess." "What time should I come by tomorrow for my truck? Parts will be in around noon. I'll have it ready by 3. She smiled. "Sleep well, city boy." Nicholas watched her truck disappear down the drive before finding the key and entering the cabin. It was simply furnished, but comfortable, a far cry from his minimalist penthouse with its designer furniture and state-of-the-art everything. This place felt lived in, welcoming. He slept better that night than he had in years. The next morning, Nicholas woke with the sun and spent 2 hours exploring the property. The cabin sat on 5 acres of wooded land with a small stream running through it. He found a flat rock beside the water and sat, listening to the rush of the current and the birdsong overhead. The constant tension in his shoulders continued to unwind. Around noon, he walked the 3 miles into town rather than calling a ride, enjoying the exercise and the scenery. Pine Ridge was smaller than he'd realized, just a few streets of businesses and homes clustered around a central square with a gazebo. People nodded and greeted him as he passed, their curiosity evident but their politeness prevailing. The general store provided the essentials he needed, and the elderly proprietor, Mrs. Landry, gave him a brief history of the town along with his change. "You staying at the Wilson place? Beautiful view up there. Martha Wilson makes the best blueberry jam in the county. There's a jar in the pantry if you haven't found it yet." Nicholas arrived at Brennan's Auto just before 3, carrying a coffee from the small cafe across the street. Tess was under the hood of his truck, making final adjustments. "How's it looking?" he asked, setting a second coffee on her workbench. "I brought you this, wasn't sure how you take it, so I grabbed some cream and sugar packets." Tess straightened, surprise flickering across her face. "Black is perfect, thanks," she accepted the cup. "Your truck is good to go. New radiator hose topped off the coolant, and I checked everything else while I was at it. Your air filter was filthy, so I replaced that too." "I appreciate it." Nicholas pulled out his wallet. "What do I owe you?" Tess named a figure that seemed ridiculously low, especially for the thorough work she'd done. Nicholas started to protest, but something in her expression stopped him. Pride, he realized. This wasn't charity, this was her livelihood, planning to head back to your cabin. Tess asked as she processed his credit card. "Actually, I thought I might explore the town a bit first. Any recommendations? On a Wednesday afternoon, limited options." Tess smiled. "There's a hiking trail that starts behind the library. It's only about 2 miles round trip, but has a great view of the valley. Or if you're hungry, Daisy's Diner does a decent burger." "How about dinner?" Nicholas heard himself ask. "Would you like to join me, as thanks for rescuing me yesterday?" Tess studied him for a moment, and Nicholas felt strangely nervous. When was the last time he'd actually asked a woman to dinner? In Boston, his assistant usually arranged his dates with women from his social circle. "I close at 6, Tess finally said. "Daisy's is fine for lunch, but for dinner you want Miller's Tavern on the edge of town. They do a great steak. Meet you there at 6:30, Nicholas smiled. "It's a date." "It's dinner," Tess corrected, but her eyes held a spark of interest that made his heart beat a little faster. Miller's Tavern was a rustic establishment with wooden beams, a stone fireplace, and a bar made from a massive slab of local oak. The food was excellent, simple but perfectly prepared, with ingredients sourced from nearby farms. Nicholas and Tess sat in a corner booth, conversation flowing more easily than he'd expected. "So how does a tech genius end up burnout at?" Tess paused. "How old are you anyway?" 35, Nicholas answered, "and it's a pretty standard story. Started coding in college, developed an app that took off, reinvested the profits, expanded too quickly, nearly lost everything, then rebuilt smarter." "The usual," Tess laughed. Oh yes, very standard. I've heard that exact story from at least 3 people in Pine Ridge. Nicholas smiled, cutting into his steak. What about you? Always wanted to be a mechanic. Actually, I wanted to be a veterinarian, Tess admitted. I was pre-vet in college, worked summers at the garage with Dad, then he got sick my junior year, early heart problems. I came home to help, thinking it would be temporary. She shrugged. He recovered that time, but the business was struggling. I realized he needed me more than I needed that degree, so I stayed, learned everything about running the shop. Do you regret it? Nicholas asked. Tess considered the question. Sometimes, but I love what I do and I was with Dad for those last years. That's worth something, she smiled. Plus, I still get to fix things, different kinds of engines, that's all. By the time they finished dinner, Nicholas realized 3 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. There was something refreshingly direct about Tess. No corporate politics, no hidden agendas, just honest conversation. This was nice, Tess said as they stepped outside into the cool evening air. Thanks for dinner. Thank you for joining me, Nicholas replied, and for fixing my truck. All part of the service, she joked, then hesitated. Listen, I'm taking Saturday off to go fishing at Cooper Lake. It's about an hour from here, great spot. You're welcome to join if you want. Might be more interesting than sitting in your cabin. Nicholas was surprised by the invitation and by how much he wanted to accept. I'd like that. Fair warning though, I've never been fishing. Tess's laugh was warm in the night air. City boy through and through, don't worry, I'll teach you. Pick you up at 6 in the morning. 6, Nicholas groaned. On a Saturday, fish don't sleep in, Yates, take it or leave it. I'll take it, he said quickly. 6 it is. The next 2 days, Nicholas found himself thinking about Tess more often than he'd expected. He explored the town and surrounding trails, introducing himself to locals who were curious but respectful. Word had spread about who he was, but people seemed more interested in whether he'd tried Mrs. Landry's apple pie than in his corporate success. On Friday, he stopped by the garage with lunch from the cafe, sandwiches and homemade potato salad that the owner, Martha, had insisted were Tess's favorite. You don't have to keep feeding me, you know, Tess said as they ate in her small office. I fixed your truck because it's my job, not because I wanted sandwiches. I know, Nicholas replied, but I enjoy your company. That okay? Tess studied him, a slight smile playing at her lips. Yeah, that's okay. Saturday morning arrived with a gentle rain that had Nicholas wondering if their fishing trip would be canceled. But at 6 sharp, Tess's truck pulled up and she honked once. She was dressed in waterproof gear, a tackle box and 2 fishing rods in the truck bed. Rain won't hurt us, she announced as Nicholas climbed in. It'll clear up by 8 and the fishing's better after a rain anyway. The drive to Cooper Lake was filled with Tess's stories about growing up in Pine Ridge summer swimming holes, high school football games, and the time she and her friends accidentally set off the town's only fire alarm during a chemistry experiment gone wrong. Small towns have long memories, she laughed. I was 25 before fire. Chief Roberts stopped calling me Sparky. The rain had indeed stopped by the time they reached the lake, a pristine body of water surrounded by forest. Tess led him to what she called her spot, a quiet cove where they set up portable chairs and fishing gear. Okay, lesson 1, Tess said, demonstrating how to bait a hook with practiced ease. Nicholas tried to mimic her movements, failing miserably the first 3 times. His corporate precision was useless here, and his frustration must have shown on his face. Here, Tess said softly, standing behind him and guiding his hands. Her closeness sent a warmth through him that had nothing to do with the emerging sun. Gentle but firm, like this. By mid-morning, Nicholas had caught 2 small bass, which they released, and was feeling unreasonably proud of himself. They shared sandwiches and thermoses of coffee, talking easily about everything and nothing. Why Pine Ridge? Nicholas asked as they packed up around noon. You're smart, capable, you could run a garage anywhere. Tess was quiet for a moment. It's home. After Dad died, I thought about selling, moving to Charlotte or Raleigh, but this place, she gestured around them, it's in my bones, the mountains, the people. Why would I leave paradise to live somewhere else? Looking at her copper hair catching the sunlight, eyes reflecting the blue of the lake. Nicholas suddenly understood. There was something authentic about Tess and this place that his world in Boston lacked entirely. Besides, she continued, someone needs to keep all these old trucks running. These folks depend on me. They're lucky to have you, Nicholas said softly. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, and Nicholas felt something shift between them, a recognition, a possibility. The next 2 weeks fell into a comfortable pattern. Nicholas spent his days exploring the area, reading books he'd put off for years, and occasionally helping out at the community center where he'd volunteered to teach a basic computer skills class for seniors. His evenings often included Tess dinner at Miller's, walks around the town square, or simply sitting on his cabin's porch watching the sunset. He learned that Tess sang in the shower, preferred dogs to cats, and could name every constellation in the night sky. She discovered his secret love of cooking, his inability to fold fitted sheets, and his childhood dream of becoming an astronaut. One evening, as they sat on his porch swing watching fireflies emerge in the twilight, Nicholas realized he hadn't checked his email in over a week. The company that had been his entire identity for a decade now felt distant, almost irrelevant. "Penny for your thoughts," Tess said, nudging his shoulder. "I was just thinking about Boston," he admitted. "It feels like another life, missing it." "Strangely, no." Nicholas turned to look at her. "I should be, that life, the company, the deals, the constant movement, it defined me for so long, but being here..." He gestured to the peaceful scene before them. "I'm starting to wonder if I've been chasing the wrong things." Tess was quiet for a moment. "Success looks different to different people. Your company employs thousands of people, creates products that improve lives, that matters." "It does," Nicholas agreed. "But at what cost? I haven't had a real relationship in years, no time for family or friends, just work, always work." "So find a balance," Tess suggested. "It doesn't have to be all or nothing." Their conversation was interrupted by the ringing of the cabin's landline. Nicholas excused himself to answer it, returning a few minutes later with a troubled expression. "Everything okay?" Tess asked. "That was my COO. There's a situation with the company, a potential hostile takeover attempt. The board wants me back in Boston immediately." Nicholas ran a hand through his hair. "I need to leave first thing tomorrow." Tess's face fell slightly before she composed herself. "Of course, your company needs you." "Tess, it's fine, Nicholas, really." She stood, gathering her jacket. "This was always temporary, right? Your real life is waiting for you in Boston." Before he could respond, she was heading to her truck, calling over her shoulder, "Safe travels. It was nice knowing you, city boy." Nicholas watched her drive away, a hollowness settling in his chest that had nothing to do with the company crisis. The next morning, he packed quickly and drove his truck down the mountain road toward the interstate that would take him back to Boston. As he passed Brennan's auto, he slowed, noticing Tess's truck in the lot. He pulled in before he could talk himself out of it. She was under the hood of an old pickup, her copper ponytail visible as she worked. "Tess," he called softly. She straightened, surprise crossing her face. "Thought you'd be halfway to Boston by now." "I'm leaving, yes, but I wanted to say goodbye properly." Nicholas stepped closer. "And to say that these past weeks have been the happiest I've had in years, because of this place and because of you." Tess's expression softened. "Nicholas, I know my life is complicated right now, but when this situation is resolved, I'd like to come back, not just to visit." Nicholas took a deep breath. "I think there's something here worth exploring, if you feel it too." Tess studied him, her green eyes searching his face. "What about your company, your life in Boston?" "I'm not abandoning my responsibilities, but I've built a strong executive team. Maybe it's time I trusted them more, delegated better." Nicholas smiled slightly. "A smart mechanic once told me it doesn't have to be all or nothing." A slow smile spread across Tess's face. "Pretty wise mechanic. She has her moments." Nicholas reached for her hand, gently taking it despite the grease stains. "I'll call you from Boston, and I'll be back as soon as I can." "I'll be here," Tess said softly. Fixing trucks and waiting for a certain city boy to figure out what he really wants. Their first kiss was brief but tender, a promise of possibilities neither had expected when his truck broke down on that mountain road. The 3 weeks Nicholas spent in Boston dealing with the attempted takeover were some of the most focused of his career. He worked with a new clarity and purpose, restructuring leadership, securing his company's position, and most importantly, implementing changes that would allow him more flexibility moving forward. His penthouse, once his pride, now felt sterile and empty. The view of Boston Harbor, which had graced countless magazine profiles about his success, couldn't compare to the mountain vista from that simple cabin porch. Every night, he called Tess on her landline, their conversations spanning hours as they shared their days and deepened their understanding of each other. Distance, rather than cooling what had sparked between them, only strengthened Nicholas's certainty that he'd found something rare and precious in Pine Ridge and in Tess. When Nicholas returned to Pine Ridge a month after leaving, the town welcomed him like a returning friend rather than a visiting celebrity. He rented the Wilson cabin again, but this time with no predetermined end date. Over the following months, Nicholas found the balance he'd been missing. He worked remotely 3 weeks each month, flying to Boston for 1 week of in-person meetings. The company didn't just survive this new arrangement, it thrived, with fresh perspectives Nicholas brought back from his simplified life in the mountains. As winter approached, Nicholas found himself spending more evenings at Tess's small house on the edge of town, cooking dinner together or simply enjoying each other's company by the fireplace. They moved slowly, both understanding that what was building between them was too important to rush. Nicholas also became more involved in the Pine Ridge community. When the town's outdated computer system crashed, he personally funded and implemented a new one. When the high school needed mentors for their science program, he volunteered weekly. And when Tess mentioned her struggle to find qualified help at the garage, he connected her with a vocational training program that sent 2 apprentice mechanics her way. "You're not trying to fix everything with money, are you?" Tess asked one evening as they walked hand in hand through the first snowfall of the season. "Not everything," Nicholas replied. "Some things just need time and patience." He squeezed her hand. Like us. By spring, Nicholas had made a decision. On a warm April evening, he took Tess back to Cooper Lake, to the spot where they'd fished together. There, as the sun set over the water, he asked her to marry him with his grandmother's ring, a simple sapphire that matched Tess's eyes perfectly. "Are you sure about this?" Tess asked, even as tears of joy filled her eyes. "Pine Ridge is a long way from the life you built." "I'm building a better one now," Nicholas replied. "With you, with this community, I've never been more certain of anything." Their wedding the following autumn was a town-wide celebration. Nicholas's board members flew in, looking bewildered but pleased to see their CEO so genuinely happy. Tess wore her mother's restored wedding dress, carrying wildflowers gathered that morning from the meadow near their new home, a larger cabin Nicholas had built halfway between town and his original rental, with a workshop for Tess and an office for him. 2 years after his truck broke down on that mountain road, Nicholas Yates had transformed both his life and Brennan's auto. The garage had expanded to a full-service operation with 4 mechanics, while Nicholas ran Yates Tech Solutions with a new philosophy that prioritized balance and purpose over endless growth. He still flew to Boston monthly, but Pine Ridge was unquestionably home. "Penny for your thoughts," Tess said one evening as they sat on their porch swing, her head on his shoulder, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, their first child due in summer. Nicholas smiled, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. "I was just thinking about broken radiator hoses and the unexpected paths they can lead us down." Tess laughed, the sound still his favorite in the world. "Best breakdown of your life." Nicholas pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. "Best everything of my life." As twilight settled over the mountains, Nicholas reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. He had left the city seeking peace, never expecting the woman who fixed his truck would also fix the broken parts of himself he hadn't even recognized, and in doing so, capture his heart completely.